This is Chargers Now. I'm Will Ortner, and today we are going to discuss what the Chargers should do at pick number 22, because right now I am very intrigued as to what this team can do. In this video, we're going to discuss 3 different options that the Chargers could potentially have for what they should do at pick number 22. General Manager Joe Hortiz, he's got a lot of options on the table. I wonder what he'll end up doing. We'll talk about Peter Schrager's latest mock draft, Daniel Popper's latest mock draft, and then I'll give you my opinion from my latest mock draft on what we should do at pick number 22. But before we get into any of that, what's your initial reaction before we dive into any other different options that could potentially sway your opinion? Let me know. Should the Chargers stay at that 22 spot and take a certain player that you desperately want? Should they move back? Could they do a plethora of different options? Maybe even move up in this draft? You let me know what your opinion is down below in the comment section. If you're fired up about the 2026 season for the Chargers, you hit that thumbs up button as well. When we look at the latest mock drafts, let's start with Peter Schrager, because the ESPN reporter is, I believe, one of the more talented minds when it comes to mock draft season. You see a lot of these so-called NFL experts, they throw out a lot of just picks. Hey, this could be made here. This could be made there. Schrager, he's a lot more cerebral about it. He is someone that really lets a lot of the chips fall, and then he ends up making his call on where he thinks a certain player could end up. So Schrager ends up actually getting a decent amount of his mock draft choices right. Now, he does wait until closer to the end to make his calls, but I'll tell you right now, Peter Schrager is someone who's very impressive to me when it comes to his mock drafts. Who does he have the Chargers taking? Well, he has the Chargers taking offensive tackle Blake Miller. He is from Clemson, really tall, long offensive tackle, someone who had a lot of success in his college football career, a lot of reps on the offensive line. And trust me when I tell you this, offensive linemen age like fine wine. The more opportunities, the more reps that they get on the field, the better that they typically do. Here's what Schrager had to say on why he had Miller mocked to the Chargers. Miller started every single game over his 4 years with Clemson, 54 starts, and for a Chargers offensive line that was ravaged by injuries last season, taking the quintessential Iron Man of this tackle class at number 22 makes sense. Miller could provide depth behind tackles Joe Alt and Rashawn Slater, and even slide inside to guard. Now, I like this take here from Schrager because it does feel like the Chargers need to have a better backup plan for that tackle or both of those tackle positions after last season, because unfortunately things did not go the way of our team in LA when it came to injuries. Miller had a lot of success, really good in pass pro. Run blocking could be improved upon, but if you're having success like this in the ACC, you're doing a pretty darn good job. I also like that Miller has stayed healthy for the majority of his career. Offensive line is the type of position that once injuries start to come in, it can kind of hurt you a little bit in the long run. Now, am I going to sit here and say that Miller is the most fluid player, that he's a player that's only going to continue to grow? No, I'm not going to do that. I think that that would be kind of a lie. Now, what I will say about Miller is he is someone that is going to be a solid NFL pro. He's got good size, he's got good athletic ability, and he is someone that, despite some of his inconsistencies, is clearly doing something right. Because you would not have 54 starts for the Clemson Tigers and Dabo Swinney if you were not ready for prime time. When we look at the depth of this Chargers offensive line, I would not hate having Miller in as potentially that left guard replacement for Trevor Penning. But if Rashawn Slater or Joe Alt ended up going down, he could easily bounce outside to a tackle spot, and you'd have a better tackle backup than previously had. There's another option here for the Chargers as well. Potentially, you bounce Rashawn Slater inside to guard after his latest injury. Maybe he's not moving quite as well. You see that in minicamp and training camp. Well, now you have Miller there, and he can be at tackle. Now, maybe you move Joe Alt to left tackle, and you have Miller at the right tackle spot. But there's some shuffling that can be moved around with this Chargers offensive line that I do think is a good growth option for this team. I believe that Miller would be a fantastic option for the Chargers. Now, he's not necessarily my top offensive line target. In fact, he's not even my top interior or exterior offensive line target for this team. But he is definitely someone that if the cards go the wrong way for the Chargers, would be a decent option to take there. We're only 12 days from the NFL draft. Make sure that you hit that subscribe button here on Chargers Now. Any Chargers news or rumors around the draft and in the entire offseason of the NFL, you're going to want to make sure that you don't miss out on it. So make sure that you hit that sub button now. The Athletic's Daniel Popper had a mock draft as well, and he had an interesting decision here that I think a lot of Chargers fans are going to find very positive. And in fact, even though this isn't my main option for the Chargers, I do think if a couple of picks don't go the way of LA and some of the targets are already drafted before the Chargers have their choice, general manager Joe Ortiz could potentially end up trading down. Now, Daniel Popper has the Chargers trading with the Arizona Cardinals in his latest mock draft. Now, the reason for this is because the Cardinals, they're heavily linked to Ty Simpson. And so potentially could Arizona move up to pick 22 so that they could go get Ty Simpson? Well, Daniel Popper kind of expands upon that in this quote. A logical partner, as we touched on earlier this week, is the Arizona Cardinals at number 34 in the second round. The Cardinals are in need of a quarterback, and in this scenario, they would be trading up with the Chargers to take Alabama quarterback Ty Simpson. Now, in Popper's trade idea, it makes a whole lot of sense in my personal opinion. The Cardinals are moving into the first round. The Chargers would essentially be moving back into the second round. You end up getting 2 second-round picks, but pick 34, it's pretty damn close to being in the first round. Anyways, you just don't get that fifth-year option at the tail end of whoever that player that you drafted's first contract. You'd get a third-round pick from the Arizona Cardinals, so you end up having 4 day 2 picks in a draft that's a little bit deeper than I think people realize. The top-end talent isn't the same as the 27 class, and the quarterbacks are very few and far in between. That's why you don't have as much juice going around this draft. But it is important to note that the Chargers would also get a 2027 fourth-round pick, which the Chargers desperately want because that is another draft that is a little bit deeper. In my personal opinion, I think that this is a great decision here by Popper and general manager Joe Ortiz if he chose to make it, if the guys that the Chargers have been clearly targeting are not there. If the Chargers look at this draft, general manager Joe Ortiz says, hey, you know what? The guy that I think would be the best pick isn't here. Well, this is a great decision to make, and it's one that I would be very pro and be very excited for. Would you make this trade? Let me know down below in the comment section. Would you trade with the Arizona Cardinals, get a bunch more picks for the Chargers? You'd end up going from 5 picks to 6, and you'd end up having 4 picks in day 2. Let me know your personal opinion down below. Now, the last option that I want to talk about is one that I've come up with, and it's one that you've probably heard me say a time or two here on the channel, but I do think it is important that I make sure that I exercise my voice, and I make sure that you know where I stand. And if you don't know where I stand, then you're probably not a real one, so make sure that you are a real one by watching all of our videos. It's Vega Ioane, man. Vega Ioane is the best interior offensive lineman in this class. And we saw last year what an interior offensive lineman drafted in the first round can do for a team. The Seattle Seahawks went from having an average team and an average offensive line to a team that won a Super Bowl with an above-average offensive line because they got the right guy at the guard spot. And we need to stop discounting the success that these guys can have. If Vega Ioane was an offensive tackle, which he could be if he really wanted to at that size, he would be the number 1 tackle off the board. He's incredible, moves really well, doesn't give up a lot of pressures, doesn't give up any sacks, and is great in the run game. He grades out high according to PFF, and he's someone that he has an overall talent base that is not going to be missed. He is a must draft, in my personal opinion. He is someone that is only going to help grow this team. He is someone that doesn't make mistakes. He doesn't cost his team. And his offensive coordinator, Andy Kotelnicki, used to line him up at wide receiver and motion him in. So you know he has the athleticism to be a guard in the Mike McDaniel system. There is no world where the Chargers should not draft Ioane if he is there. If Vega Ioane is there on the board, it should take 1 second for that pick to come in. And it should look just like the Detroit Lions front office and coaching staff looked when they took Aiden Hutchinson right after Trayvon Walker had been the number 1 overall pick in that draft. I believe it was the 2023 draft. There's no world no world where the Chargers can pass up on Ioane. Now, if he's not there, then I probably prefer what Daniel Popper had saying on The Athletic. Thank you guys so much for viewing today's video. Make sure that you hit that subscribe button. We'll keep you up to date on everything Chargers, that I guarantee. Thank you guys so much for viewing today's video. Make sure that you bolt up.